I'm just going to say it. What if you didn't actually marry a person? You married a pattern. You click this video because you're tired of having the same argument for the 47th time, right? But here's the truth nobody tells you. Most relationships don't repeat the same fight. They repeat the same emotional, I call it choreography. I've been in the medical field and for 30 years and I'm a registered nurse, right? I've stabilized thousands of bodies in crises. But in my 15 years of marriage to my husband, who I've actually known since we were 10 years old in fifth grade back in Kenya, I've realized that the crisis in our living room often has nothing to do with the present. It's the nervous system replaying an old script it learned decades ago. So today I'm going to talk to you about how you spot the choreography before you start the dance, because I call it the emotional choreography, right? And why we do this. Because think about your last big disagreement with your partner. Did it follow a specific flow? One person distances, the other pursues, one shuts down, the other over explains, one audits. And when I mean audit, I mean they audit their tone, the other proves their intent. Yep. You know how I look at it? I think of it as it's like a Broadway play where everybody already knows the lines, but nobody actually likes the show, right? I'm just being honest. Because as an HSP or a highly sensitive person, you're a master at reading the room. But that gift becomes a curse when your nervous system starts looking for, I call it pattern familiarity instead of a healthy relationship. So you end up always being the one calming someone down or translating their tone because your body recognizes the tension. Isn't that crazy? That's wild. Like that's what we do. It feels like home for us HSPs, even if that home was a house on fire. Crazy, right? So I'm gonna show you another angle of this, right? Talk to you about the nervous system. So your nervous system, it trusts what it recognizes, not necessarily what is good for you, but what it trusts. So if love once meant walking on eggshells or being the fixer to keep the peace, guess what feels normal to you now? It is not calm. Calm feels like the waiting room of a disaster. So intensity is what feels safe for you because intensity is what you were trained for. So my husband and I have known each other for over 25 years, right? So we've seen each other grow up. But even with all that love, if I'm not careful, my 10-year-old self will show up to the conversation. If he's quiet, I don't see that as a tired man. I see an abandoned little girl who needs to perform to be safe. We have to realize that our bodies don't leave our childhood at the altar. They bring every flinch, every fawn response right into the master bedroom. So, and how do you know you're in that pattern? If you pay attention, your body tells you before your mind does. And for me in the clinic when I work, we have monitors to tell us when a patient is crashing, right? But in your relationship, your nervous system is the monitor, right? So here's the thing that no one tells you. For an HSP, the urgency to resolve a fight right now isn't just about being a good partner. It's actually biological survival signal. Crazy. When I find that out, I was just like, wow, that's when you feel like the world will end if you don't fix it immediately. And that is your brain actually misinterpreting a disagreement as a total loss of safety. Your body is treating a mood like a code blue, for instance, for me, like in the hospital. So, how do you know you're in the pattern? It will tell you again when your body will tell you when your mind doesn't. So, like for me, I know when a patient is crashing, but in your life, your nervous system is that monitor. I want you to remember that, and that's why I'm repeating that. So here's the thing that no one tells you. For many of us, we grew up as the emotional nurse. And when I say emotional nurse, we're emotional nurse for our families. Like you may not have a degree, but you've been on call since you were a child. Crazy how that happens. You learned early safety. You learned early that safety for you was tied to their regulation. So if they were happy, you could breathe. If they were tense, you had to fix. And that's starting with your siblings, your family, your dad, your mom, all that. Now, as an adult, when your partner is silent or upset, you feel the fear as a physical weight on your chest, like, oh, and you're like, why? Because to your nervous system, their silence feels like environmental failure. It feels like the oxygen has left the room. You feel like a criminal for setting a boundary because the guilt kicks in, because your body literally thinks that staying small or fixing, which is means fixing them, is the only way to keep the peace. So I want to remind you that you're not weak for over explaining. You're just using a survival tactic that you learned when you were too young to have any other choice. So, and the interesting thing is that as an HSP, you've been using your own energy to stabilize the room for decades. And you don't even notice that. And that's why I wanted to share it with you, because as a nurse, I can tell you that you cannot be the ventilator for another adult. And I mentioned this in a previous video, because if they refuse to breathe, you are running out of breath and you cannot save them. So you are allowed to be okay even when the room is not. The next time you feel that urgency to fix your partner's mood, I want you to name it. I want you to say, my body thinks this is an emergency, but I'm actually safe. And notice what happens, because that's how you just stop being an emotional nurse on an unpaid shift and start being the woman or man in the room. You're not responsible for the weather in their world. You're only responsible for the sanctuary in yours, right? And you're also not weak for, again, over explaining, because you are co-regulating for your life. And I want to tell you that you've been using your own energy to stabilize that room. For me, it's been for years. But as a nurse, like you should not be the ventilator for that adult. No. So I want you to always remember that the next time you feel that urgency to fix, please say it. My body thinks this is an emergency, but my life is actually safe. And that'll give you the permission that you need to know that you can stop being that emotional regulator for that other person. So I want you to practice those things that we've shared here today. I hope they help you, because for me, they've been very helpful in getting out of that state of always just being the fixer, the translator, the peacemaker, all those things, and fawning. So please let me know in the comments how you're regulating your life, how you're staying regulated, because as HSPs, it's very important for us to stay regulated and stop being the emotional nurse in our, in our families. So I want you to remember that you're doing better than you think, and be patient with yourself, give yourself grace, and I will see you in the next one.